I grew up in Laos, came to America in 1991, and have lived through several very different worlds. As a child, I didn't have much. I grew up without my father, with few friends, and with my mother raising us through difficult circumstances. But I didn't think about it the way I do now. I simply lived. When I came to America, I had to learn a new language, a new culture, and a new way of life. I once wanted to become a doctor. I didn't become one, but I realize now that the desire to help others never really left me. Over the years, I explored the stock market, real estate, family life, and many other things. I made good decisions and bad decisions. I succeeded at some things and failed at others. Now, I spend more time observing life and asking questions. Life isn't a straight line. Sometimes we lose people. Sometimes we find people. Sometimes people are kind to us, and sometimes people we know very well can hurt us or take our kindness for weakness. I've learned that being kind doesn't mean you have to allow others to take advantage of you. We can be kind and still have boundaries. We can love people and still protect ourselves. Most importantly, I've learned that we are never finished becoming who we are. I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning. And this episode is also a message to my children. I made mistakes while raising you, just as my parents made mistakes while raising me. I hope you learn from both my successes and my mistakes. Think for yourselves, take responsibility for your choices, take care of your family, and create a life that makes sense to you. You cannot always control what happens in life, but you can keep learning, you can keep adjusting, and you can keep moving forward. Episode 12, Part 1, Growing Up in Different Worlds. When I think about myself today, I sometimes wonder how many different worlds I have lived in. I was born in Laos. I grew up during a difficult time. I didn't have my father. I didn't have many friends. My mother raised us, and we didn't have many of the things that other families had. There were times when there wasn't enough food. There were things other children had that I didn't have. But when I was a child, I don't remember sitting there thinking, why is my life like this? I don't remember thinking, I don't have a father, so my life is terrible. I don't remember thinking, I don't have many friends, so I must be unhappy. I simply lived. I ate what we had. I played when I could. I went fishing. I watched other people. I grew up. Perhaps that's how children are sometimes. They don't always compare their lives with the entire world the way adults do. They simply accept the world that is in front of them. A child may not know that life could be different, so the life they have becomes normal. Looking back now, I can see the poverty. I can see the difficulties. I can see the things we didn't have. And sometimes I feel sad when I think about that little boy. But I don't necessarily regret being that boy, because that boy learned something without realizing it. He learned to live with what he had. He learned to keep going. He learned that life doesn't have to be perfect for you to live it. Maybe that is one reason I still think about living simply today. Perhaps I didn't discover simple living when I became older. Perhaps I learned it when I was a child. I just didn't have a name for it. I was simply living the life that was in front of me. Then, one day that life changed. My family came to America, and suddenly I was in another world, a different language, a different school, a different culture, a different way of looking at life. But perhaps the same person was still inside me. I was still learning, still observing, still trying to understand where I belonged. And maybe that's what life has been for me all along, moving from one world to another, while slowly trying to understand myself. I'm Thao, and this is I Choose the Light. Episode 12, Part 2, Learning to Find My Way. When my family came to America in January of 1991, I knew that my life had changed, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with that new life. I was still young. I was learning English. I was learning how American schools worked. And at the same time, I was trying to understand myself. I remember starting my school year in, not elementary, not middle school, but in high school in Visalia, California. English was my second language, and I had a lot to learn. At one point, I wanted to become a doctor. I don't remember exactly why I chose that dream. Maybe I simply thought being a doctor was a good thing to become. Maybe I wanted to help people. Maybe I just didn't know what else I wanted to do. But wanting something and knowing how to get there are two different things. My English wasn't strong enough. School was difficult. And eventually, I realized that becoming a doctor probably wasn't going to happen for me. At first, that could have felt like failure. But looking back, I think I simply accepted it. I didn't become a doctor, so I moved on. After high school, I spent a couple of years in Wisconsin. Then, in the middle of 1997, I moved to Georgia. And eventually, Georgia became home. When I look back at those years, I realized that I was moving from place to place without having a clear picture of where I was going. I wasn't following some big master plan. I was simply trying something, learning something, and moving forward. Then one day, I walked into a bookstore. I didn't know it at the time, but buying that first book would lead me in another direction. I believe it was a book about the stock market. My second or third book was probably about real estate. And suddenly, I became interested in something completely different. How does money work? How do people invest? How do people build something? How do people become financially independent? I started learning about the stock market. I went in and out of it over the years. I also studied real estate and eventually received a real estate agent's license. I don't have that license anymore. I decided not to renew it. And I'm not going to pretend that I became an expert investor or real estate professional. I didn't. I'm still learning. That's actually something I've learned about myself. I don't need to pretend that I know everything. If I don't know something, I can say, I don't know, and then I can learn. Today, I still don't know the stock market in great depth. I don't know everything about the great investors, Warren Buffett or Benjamin Graham. I don't know everything about the great builders and inventors like Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Steve Jobs, or, more recently, Jensen Huang and Elon Musk. If I made videos about them, I would have to do a lot of research. And I would probably need help from technology and AI to organize the information. But there's something else I've become interested in. Life itself. For the past few years, I've spent more time observing. I observe people. I observe my family. I observe traditions. I observe religions. I observe cause and effect. And sometimes I simply observe myself. I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a religious scholar. I'm not an expert in human behavior. I'm just a person who has lived through some things and started asking questions. Maybe that's what I choose the light really means to me. I'm still learning. I'm still observing. I'm still trying to understand. And perhaps I don't need to know exactly where the road will take me. Maybe I only need to take the next step. One book, one question, one experience, one lesson, one day at a time. That's how I have lived most of my life. I didn't always know where I was going, but somehow I kept going. And maybe that is also a kind of finding your way. Episode 12, Part 3. What kind of life are we creating? When I think back to when I wanted to become a doctor, I realized something. Maybe I didn't completely give up on that dream. I just found a different way to carry it. I may never become a doctor. I may never have the knowledge or the ability to physically heal someone's illness. But in my heart, I still want to help and heal others through prayers. I prayed to heaven, earth, God, and Buddha for my mother to get better when she was in hospice care. I'm not sure if my prayers have been answered, but she recovered in a couple of weeks. She is still living with me today. I want to remember my father and hope and pray that his soul is healthy and at peace. And when someone I love is suffering, I want to do whatever I can. Sometimes it means simply staying beside someone. And sometimes, for me, it means praying for healing. I don't know exactly what happens when we pray. You just pray and wish for others to heal or to get better. I don't know whether prayers travel somewhere beyond what we can see. I don't know if prayers have healing energies. But prayer can express something that is difficult to put into ordinary words. I pray you're okay. I pray you get better. I pray you are safe. I pray you find peace. Maybe that's one reason I still pray. Not because I think I have all the answers, but because I care. And perhaps that is what I was looking for. I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. Maybe I didn't really want to become a doctor because I wanted the title. Maybe somewhere inside me, I simply wanted to help and heal others. Now I have children of my own, and when I look at them, I think about the kind of life I hope they will create. When I was a young father, I made decisions that I thought were right at the time. Some are good decisions. Some are mistakes. I'm sure there are things I would do differently if I could go back. But that's part of being human. Every decision has consequences. Sometimes we don't see those consequences until years later. That's why I often tell my children, you cannot just be. You have to be. To me, that means you have to decide what kind of person you want to become. You can't simply wait for life to decide everything for you. If you want to become an engineer, learn what engineers do. If you want to become a doctor, learn what doctors do. If you want to become a lawyer, learn what lawyers do. If you want to build a business, learn how businesses work. Whatever you choose, learn about it. Ask questions. Make mistakes. Try again. You don't have to know everything today, but you should know what direction you're trying to go. I also tell my children that life has both positive and negative sides. Some people call it yin and yang. I don't mean that we can control everything that happens to us. We can't. People become sick. People lose jobs. People experience abuse. People go through divorce. People lose loved ones. Sometimes life simply brings things we didn't choose. But there are also things we can influence. Our choices, our habits, the people we spend time with, the way we treat others, the way we respond to problems, the things we learn, and the direction we keep moving. Sometimes one small decision becomes another decision, then another. It can become a trend, and sometimes that trend can feel like an avalanche. That's why I tell my children to think before they act. If you don't know what you're doing, ask. If you don't understand something, learn. If you're confused, talk to someone you trust. You don't have to solve your entire life in one day. Build it one piece at a time. I sometimes tell them to sit down or imagine drawing their own life. What would you draw? Chaos? A peaceful home? A family? A career? Travel? A simple life? You may not be able to make the picture exactly as you imagined it. Life will always change the picture. But if you don't know what you want at all, it becomes much harder to know which direction to take. So perhaps the first step is simply to look at yourself. Who are you? What do you value? What do you want to learn? Who do you want to help? What kind of person do you want to become? I don't have all the answers myself. I'm still asking those questions. Perhaps at the end of the day, you do what you want to do and be what you want to be and just enjoy life. Maybe that's why I call this channel, I Choose the Light. I'm not standing at the end of the road telling you what I discovered. I'm walking on the road too. I'm looking back at where I came from. I'm looking at where I am. And I'm trying to understand where I want to go next. I came from Laos. I came to America in 1991. I moved through different places. I tried different things. I wanted to become a doctor. I became interested in investing in real estate. I became a husband. I became a father. I made mistakes. I learned. I lost people. I found people. And I'm still here. Still learning. Still observing. Still asking questions. Maybe that's what life is. Not becoming exactly what we imagined when we were young, but continuing to become who we are. Sometimes we lose people. Sometimes we find people. Sometimes people are kind to us, and sometimes people we know very well can hurt us or take our kindness for weakness. I've learned that being kind doesn't mean you have to allow others to take advantage of you. We can be kind and still have boundaries. We can love people and still protect ourselves. And if I can leave my children with one thing, it would be this. Appreciate life. Appreciate what you have instead of comparing yourself to others. Don't abandon what you have and chase after others or what you don't have. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Love your family. Take care of your family. Learn what you want to do. Be responsible for your choices. Enjoy life. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because you are not finished. Neither am I. We're still creating the picture, one day at a time. If these conversations encourage you to pause and think about your own life, I'd be honored if you subscribe to I Choose the Light. I'm Thao, and this is I Choose the Light.